it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do a really exciting first video to a multiple video series that I'm pumped to be launching on my channel. Before I even get started, I wanted to quickly shout out two booktubers who I love and was greatly inspired by for this particular challenge, and that is Books of Lala and Sarah Without an H. So I'm going to link them both down below. I love their channels so much. They're both so hilarious. But this is the first part of a 2-video series where I'm going to be reading the lowest rated books on my TBR pile. Part 1, which is this video, will be the TBR itself, where I'm basically organized, figure out those lowest books, and talk through them with you today. And then video 2 will be in an X amount of time later while I basically document the reading process, talk about my feelings and opinions about the books themselves. So the reason why I wanted to do this video so badly is because as a book lover, I'm constantly picking up reading synopsises and buying books that really intrigue me. But then when it comes to the actual selection process of what I'm going to be reading next, I use Goodreads not only as an organizational tool, but definitely as a directional tool to see, oh, this book sounds cool, what's its rating? And then sometimes if the rating falls in kind of a lower category, I'll definitely be like, maybe I'll pick something else up instead. Meaning the Goodreads rating definitely directs me positively or negatively to not pick up a book that I initially picked up because I thought it sounded interesting. Like, I bought these books because I wanted to read them. So the point of this series is to essentially evaluate where I fall within that spectrum. Do I pick up this book that kind of has a pretty low rating on Goodreads and I agree with the other reviewers? Or I pick it up and I actually do really love it because the synopsis did speak to me and it really pointed to the overall quality and success of the books to my own reading tastes. And I also thought this was really interesting because there have been many books that I agree with the general Goodreads populace, and there are other books that I have not. So it's really a toss-up where I'm going to end up. So the first step in this whole thing was I had to organize my TBR digital shelf on Goodreads and put all of the books I haven't read on there, so I will be able to sort them later to figure out what are the top 5 lowest books on my TBR. So step 1 of this process has been me painstakingly going through each book on the shelf and typing it into my TBR on Goodreads so I can sort to lowest sorted. I haven't done this in a really long time because I normally don't like to know how many unread books I have on my shelf, but here I am. Then after I did that, which is now this, I had to turn on my camera, set everything up, and we're going to now discover what those books actually are. So hold on, let me grab my computer right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to go in and sort the books from lowest to highest so I can pick the top 5. Some initial predictions are, I feel like I'm gonna have quite a bit of adult literary fiction just because I feel like Goodreads tends to have a larger divide when it comes to literary fiction, meaning that there are a lot of like love it and hate it reviews. So they tend to just have slightly lower ratings than like a YA book. Though I do think I might have some like YA thrillers on there because I also think thrillers could be very controversial. Meaning people also love them or hate them depending on how they liked the twist at the end. So that's kind of my prediction. Some YA, but a lot of adults. So let's see. Oh, it's actually a bit more like diverse in genre than I was anticipating, which is exciting because I feel like that'll make this whole series a lot more interesting. Okay, one of them I did not realize the rating at all, which is kind of blowing my mind, but we're gonna start from 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna start from my highest rated to the lowest rated. So the first book is Future Home of the Living Gods by Louise Eldridge, and this doesn't have a terrible rating by any means. It's a 3.53 on Goodreads, and it's from Book of the Month. I'm not also surprised that I have a book from Book of the Month because this particular service, when I buy things from it, I am definitely putting myself out of my comfort zone and not really looking at Goodreads ratings. I'm just kind of looking at the synopsis and hoping that it's good. Also, reading over the synopsis, this is about pregnancy and like evolution, so I would imagine this is a rather controversial topic in terms of fiction. So again, not terribly surprised, it has kind of polarizing reviews. This is a dystopian thriller centering around pregnancy and I'm assuming women's reproductive rights. It essentially says evolution stops as mysteriously as it began. Pregnancy and childbearing quickly become issues of the state security. We follow our main character Cedar, who is 4 months pregnant. Beginning of the story as she's traveling north and her world basically begins to disintegrate as the government begins to become more powerful and warring factions begin to take over from the religious end to the national security end. Things begin to spiral out of control. This is a thriller, and I again am pointing to the fact of its more controversial materials. Definitely kind of explains why this perhaps has a lower rating. It's pretty short. It sounds interesting, so I'm excited to pick it up. I don't know when I would have, so I think this is a good excuse to read it. Next up we have The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, which is like one of the most famous and well-loved authors of our generation. And this book actually has a 3.46. And the synopsis of this just sounds like something I would love, so it kind of makes me sad that it has such a low rating. And this is basically set right after the Romans invade and ultimately leave the area that we now know of as the United Kingdom. And we follow 2 main characters that set out on a journey to basically like find a new life for themselves. And this journey, they will face many hazards. They run into unexpected characters, one of them being a Saxon warrior. And it says in the synopsis, Kazuo Ishiguro's first novel in decades tells a luminous story about the act of forgetting and the power of memory, a resonant tale of love, vengeance, and war. This is like a historical fiction, fantastical novel, which again feels so right up my alley. I'm surprised it has such low ratings because I feel like everyone loves The Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go by the same author. So, okay, so this made my list. Next up is a book I picked up 100% for the synopsis. It just sounded so interesting. It's huge, which is great for a reading challenge. That is The Queen of the Night by Alexander Shea. And this follows an incredibly talented and like rising star in the opera world. And when a role of a lifetime is finally presented to her, when she reads over the libretto, she realizes it's centered around a secret that only 4 people in her life know of. And it says, 1 is dead, 1 betrayed her, 1 loves her, and 1 wants to own her. And that just sounds so cool, like an opera, drama, thriller, historical fiction. She's wearing a mask on the cover. It's really long. It has a 3.43 rating, which is so disheartening. But yeah, this is definitely a book that I hope everyone's just wrong about because the synopsis just sounds incredible, so cool, very gripping, and dark and unique. All right, the 4th book I had no idea was rated this low, and it makes me pretty sad, and that is Jane Unlimited by Kristin Cashore. This has a 3.36. This is also a YA novel. I rarely come across a book with that low of a rating. I love Kristin Cashore. She wrote Graceling, which was one of my favorite books growing up, so to see one of her newer releases have such poor reviews, makes me ponder a bit, but I'm interested to see why. This is a story that is about like multiple different paths and choices, and I believe Kristin Cashore combines a lot of different genres into one story. We follow our main character Jane, who just wants to live an ordinary life. However, when she's invited to this very mysterious and luxurious mansion, she goes. And when she arrives, this mansion provides her 5 different choices that will change her life or impact her life in 5 different very distinct ways. And I believe we follow each one of those choices to see how Jane's life would turn out after selecting one of those choices. So the synopsis of this sounds very interesting and very unique. 3.36 though, that's low. So we'll see. And the very last book on my lowest rated TBR is Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. I don't know where I put the dust jacket for this book, but I've never actually read an E. Lockhart book before, but she's very popular within the YA community. I know a lot of people really love her stories. This, I believe, is a thriller from what I can gather, and it's rated a 3.35. It's pretty short. I am intrigued. This is definitely a book that, unlike Jane Unlimited, which I already feel like I know the author, I love the author, so I have a little more hope. This one I'm very wary of with a 3.35. I feel like I might not like it, but then there's only one way to find out. But this definitely appears to be a thriller with multiple perspectives. It's about Imogen, who is a runaway, an heiress, an orphan, a cook, and a cheat, and Jewel is a fighter, a social chameleon, and an athlete. They have an intense friendship, and there's a murder, or maybe 2. So yeah, this seems like this is full of a lot of different plot elements that might be interesting. Yeah, the initial reviews on Goodreads say this is like blisteringly smart, will keep you on the edge of your seat, an interesting thriller with a very intense friendship / romance at the center. We'll see. I don't really want to know much more. E. Lockhart is definitely one who writes thrillers and things that are kind of, well, supposed to take you by surprise. I did read We Were Liars by her, which is a very popular book, and I did not love it. Oh, I have read an E. Lockhart book. Well, just realized I read an E. Lockhart book. I didn't love it, so maybe that's why I didn't remember. So we'll definitely see how I like this one. Alright guys, those are the top 5 lowest rated books on my TBR that I'm going to be reading and documenting the process of. Go down below some books you've been putting off because of their Goodreads rating, as I would be very interested to find out. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!